Excellent.
Okay, welcome and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Jane Irrigation Training Series. And today is one of those days where we're going to break out from straight irrigation and talk a little bit more about the industry, the landscape industry in general, because my guest today has really identified something that a shift that's happening in the industry that may have some major impacts on a lot of our distributor customers and horticulture and general purchasing of landscape products in general. And what we're talking about, of course, is this move for grocery stores to be selling a lot more garden products. So is that grocery store going to be your next garden center too? And at first, when I thought about this, and I thought, well, it makes a lot of sense, but I also know how competitive it is to get any space in a grocery store, right? This is tough to bid for. But then when you start to think about what's happening and the shift of people moving to growing their own food in their gardens, the victory garden things that happened during the pandemic, and when you start to see all this, it starts to make sense. And then when I think that there's 2,800 Kroger grocery stores across the US, that's more than SiteOnes, Horizons, and Ewings all put together, I start to think, wow, there could be something to this, and it could create a real competitive situation. So fortunately, I was talking to Chris Savarese about this. Chris is somebody that I go back with a lot of years now. Chris and I first started something called Landscape Chat about 12 years ago. I didn't know anything about social media at the time. Chris said, hey, do you want to do Landscape Chat on Twitter with me? And I said, you bet, because I knew Chris's reputation. I knew he had great ideas. I said, you bet. The next thing I said after that was, what is Twitter? So Chris has been somebody who really pulled me along in my career and helped educate me and train me. And certainly we did 10 years of Landscape Chat together, and I learned a lot from you, Chris, during that time. So thank you for being a guest today and coming on the show and talking about what's happening. Again, another shift changer, right? You certainly caught Twitter and social media right. Let's see if you're going to catch this right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is always a treat to be on with you and talking with you. And yeah, to be honest with you, I was not even thinking about grocery stores being a potential garden center or even something that a market that we would even be looking at. But to your point, with having 2,800 Krogers, yeah, there's some serious potential there. The amount of traffic that would just go into that store versus a garden center or any place where you can buy garden materials, that's staggering when you think about how much more it is than those types of stores. So when you start putting all that together, you start to realize that there's probably some good opportunities there. And fortunately, I was put on a panel and that was talking about this particular thing. Like grocery stores, they have noticed this. They have seen the surge in gardening, the interest in gardening, and they're like, well, wait, why do garden centers get all the fun? We want to cash in on that too. So in this discussion that we provided, it was really to kind of talk about what is the garden industry doing and how can they learn from that? What can they do? What sort of takeaways can they get from that to replicate that into a garden center in the actual grocery store? So some of the stuff that I'm going to present here is really just talking about things that we're seeing in the industry, things that we've seen in garden centers, the numbers, all that kind of stuff, as well as some merchandising and marketing ideas that people can take advantage of. And I think these are all good takeaways that people who are listening to this session can take back and implement into their business in one way or another. But it's just really exciting to see that there's, the surge in gardening is not going anywhere and that it will continue.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too, Chris. And I shop at Whole Foods a lot of the time, and I see basil plants there all the time, right? They're selling basil, they're selling other, lavenders and things like that too. And then every time I go in, I think, what would be great is if you could buy a balcony garden irrigation kit with your basil, right? The irrigation ideas start to kick in, and I think that's going to become more real, for our industry. And then certainly, I saw this week that Trader Joe's is going to start selling olive trees, and I'm seeing the shift, right? I'm also seeing, the shift of my local Vaughn's expanding their floral department, right? So their actual space in the store is getting bigger. So So why do you think the grocery stores are doing this?
Well, I think they're seeing opportunity there, and they want to make sure that they're getting a piece of that if they possibly can. But just really understanding that there was such a movement to people moving out of densely populated areas and getting property with or getting houses with much more property on it. And they did that because of all that work from home. They needed more space in their home, but so they were buying larger homes that had larger properties. And when they move in, they want to make it their own. They want to fix up the inside. They want to fix up the outside. So that's where we sort of saw that surge in gardening. Last year alone, there were 16 million new gardeners. And a lot of that was related to people who were moving and people who were, stuck at home and wanted something else to do. So that was fantastic. And you know what, let me bring up my slides here if you want, and then I can give you a quick overview.
Yeah, so I did have a question on that. So this number of 16 million new gardeners, how do you come up with that?
Various reports, and that actually came from Better Homes and Gardens, and they were saying that that's the number of people who picked up tools for the first time, who picked up plants, and I don't know if that was through reader surveys or those kinds of things, but Better Homes and Gardens, I think should have a good beat on that.
I do too. I mean, that is a big number. And one I don't think we've ever seen before. I mean, that's a lot. So that's really good to hear. I just also want to remember all the viewers out there today. I've got the chat open and the Q&A. If you've got some questions you want to put in there or some comments, I'll pass them on to Chris when appropriate.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to jump in anytime. I'd love to answer questions as they come up. But this I thought was really interesting. So in 2020, you talked about the people buying new homes. 6.5 million homes were sold in the US, and that figure is supposed to be 7.1 million in 2021. And you think about that, and the people who are buying these homes, mostly millennials, these are people who are younger, they've got young kids, they have good paying jobs that they literally moved out into these areas because they didn't have to be in the corporate headquarters anymore. This is where you saw those people who were moving into Truckee and Lake Tahoe who didn't need to work in San Jose anymore, and they could have this nice piece of property and they wanted to fix it up. So those are the people who are actually going out and getting into the garden and doing those kinds of things. And kind of to your point about, talking about when you're in the grocery store and growing herbs, one of the big things that they have are concerns about the food safety and food scarcity. So they're wanting to grow their own. They're wanting to grow more edibles in their garden just to have that security that, hey, they've got some place to go for some fresh fruit and vegetables. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that grocery stores are seeing a real opportunity there.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're seeing, as you mentioned, especially with those millennials, they want to know where their food comes from, right? This is a shift. And the purity of the food, things like organics matter a lot more. Do you see that, Chris?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely things that they're interested in, that and sustainable stuff. I mean, they see what's happening with the environment, and they are more environmentally conscious. They've seen things like, E. coli scares, that kind of stuff, that they don't want to present that to their kids. They're moving more towards organic. And that, I think, is a fundamental shift that hopefully will, be long lasting, and, that will continue to have them growing edibles out in their garden.
I know 3 landscapers in San Diego, and their specialty has been, this was even pre-COVID, they started a specialty of, we'll put raised bed gardens in your house. And this is all they do every day, all year long. And they make a great living at it because of the demand there for people saying, this is what I want. I want to grow my own food. I want to know where it is. They're seeing.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think anybody who can take advantage of, learning what's going on in the industry and being able to adapt and react to that, offering those kinds of service, because it's clearly important to these new homeowners, and they may or may not have the time to invest in that. So being able to offer that service, I think, is going to be a great value. And so one of the other things that we've learned through our research is with these 16 million new gardeners, that, just the traffic increase into garden centers like Home Depot and Lowe's, tremendous growth in this particular category in lawn and garden and in outdoor gardening. So that's something that we look at and something that we have to pay attention to. And then the last thing I wanted to share was that here's
So
a
Chris,
slide. Yeah,
I can't believe this. I saw some 30 and 40% numbers
right. Yeah, yeah. I think
in a
overall,
place that you wouldn't, that's amazing.
right, right. I mean, those are some pretty staggering numbers, and those are things that they were not planning on. And as a supplier to see that kind of increase and being able to get product out there, I mean that was a real challenge through COVID, and I think we're starting to work through some of those things, and hopefully the supply chain issue is getting to be less of a problem. But it's anything can change on a daily basis, as COVID has taught us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are things they've had on the shelves for years. It wasn't like, hey, we offered a new
Right,
product this
exactly.
year and we got a 40% growth the second year we had it. It was, these are staples.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that there wasn't really a lot of places to go, and these places like home centers and DIY stores were considered essential, because if people had issues with hot water heaters or those kinds of things and needed to get that fixed, they needed to be able to go to a hardware store, DIY center. And I think while they were there, they just said, hey, I'm gonna try growing plants because I have nothing else to do, and or I want to beautify my yard, whatever the reason. They did really see a big increase. So another thing that I wanted to share was this slide that talked about that of the new homeowners that we talked about, 51% of them are planning to do more projects to their home in 2022 over 2021, which I think is a really staggering number, considering there was a lot of work that was done in this year. And if they're actually planning more, that just means that there's tons of opportunity within not only just the landscape industry, but the gardening industry as a whole.
Yeah, that's really encouraging, Chris, because the other thing I think we're seeing is the commercial businesses come back too for landscaping. I had a lot of people last year were wondering if anybody would still go to their commercial office building or not. People are back. They're coming back. They want to be, and people are investing in the landscape again.
Right, right. Yeah, so one of the things we talked about on that panel discussion was, okay, you're in a grocery store. What are some ways to just make it simple and easy? Because these people who are coming in may or may not be thinking about gardening specifically, and the grocery stores just want to kind of capture their attention, have the plants available there, and just get them thinking about starting to garden and that kind of stuff. So they want to make it very simple and easy and have a point of purchase display that maybe even provide some educational content, because these people are new to gardening and they don't necessarily understand, what do I need after I buy this plant? What do I need to do to take care of it? So having things that, whether it's signage that helps to, kind of help educate and how it's used, and as well as having a display that's very seasonal and that can be swapped out. So as they're thinking about things like, we've got a display on the left-hand side, which is showing like pruners and gloves and those kinds of things. So as people are in the stores, they're buying flowers, they can't, they're going to need to cut the ends off to keep their flowers fresh, as well as, harvesting herbs and vegetables and those kinds of things. So these kinds of things make great items for incremental sales. I mean, when you're standing in line at the grocery store to check out, you see the tabloids, you see the candy or other little simple items there that all of a sudden you just realize you need to have. That's kind of the same principle with this type of display.
Yeah, so that's the impulse items, right? But I've seen these types of displays for Corona tools at, for instance, Home Depot too.
Yeah, and it makes it easy. They're kind of last minute decisions to purchase these kinds of things, but having them in the right place at the right time, that these people are going to be in the mindset of like, yeah, I need that.
I think it's
And
great.
so,
And I move it closer to the cash register for you guys every time I'm there. So
all right, I appreciate that. That's a good idea. I'll have to keep that one in mind. And so another thing that a lot of people have, you see them kind of everywhere now. They were out, years ago. When I first started at Corona, I was so excited. We actually implemented MS tags and QR codes onto our product packaging. And the idea was to scan it and get a product demo, how this tool works, so that you're in the store, you can scan it and get that video. Well, we thought of it way back then. Nobody was using it because you needed that extra app in order for anything to kind of come up. But now that smartphones have it built right into their camera, you just open up your camera, you point it at a QR code, and it will let you just click right over to whatever the link is. And it's fabulous. And people have been so acclimated to these over the past year and a half, especially going into a restaurant. They don't give you a menu now. They put a little QR code on the table. And in order to get the menu, you got to scan it with your phone. So people are very aware of what QR codes are now. And they're really having quite an impact in just marketing and merchandising of products.
Well, isn't that true? And you go to a restaurant now and you see all generations know how to get that QR code now, where maybe before you saw maybe just the younger generation getting it, but now everybody's figured it out. And probably the reason why we're using them so much more now.
Well, yeah, and that even the older crowds, I mean, they get it, they understand it, they know how to use it. So it's not just, hey, you're hitting those younger folks who are tech savvy. People have just figured it out. So it's like
Right.
you need to make sure that you're thinking about these things and taking advantage of them. I actually did a great podcast with one of the folks that I work with in the industry, and she was talking about using QR codes not only on like plant labels because they've started to reintroduce those, but even from a landscaper perspective, a contractor who's out in the out in the field working at a job and has a QR code on the back of their truck or something someplace on their vehicle that people can scan and learn more about their what kind of services do they offer, what sort of projects can they get from this particular landscaper. And I just think it really speaks to, we need to be more inclusive as far as looking at new ways to generate leads and to really get our brand, our visibility out there. And just I think these are cool things that people should be thinking about and using.
Yeah, I think so too. And it was a few years ago for the Fall Master Gardener's plant sale. I was a cashier, and a gentleman came up paying for his plants, and he said to me, "Hey, how come everybody here is over 45 years old?" And and I said, "Well, look, typically these are people buying plants for their homes, and a lot of the younger generation just hasn't gotten there yet, or doesn't have the luxury of the leisure time to garden." So it's nice that we're helping with the technology, spread the technology through all generations, and then to creating a way for the younger generation to participate a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about was brand ambassadors and influencers. This is something that I've really paid a lot of attention to in the past 18 months since COVID. And not only was there a lot of people who started gardening, but man, they flocked to social media, and there's people who really captured a great audience and delivered content in a really great way that people like to follow them. So I show an example here of Kevin Espiritu with Epic Gardening. If you haven't seen him on Instagram, boy, check it out. It's at Epic Gardening, and he's got tons of followers. His YouTube channel has over 1.3 million subscribers. The content that he delivers is really just comes from a place of, I'm learning how to do this and I'm showing you, and he just shares his experiences. And oftentimes he'll share his knowledge, things that he is growing in his garden, that kind of stuff. But the fact that there's so many people who are listening to him and like the kind of content that he's providing, this is a great way for people, for our industry, to work with influencers. And these influencers are talking about their brands, they're talking about their products. And boy, I'll tell you what, somebody who's looking at Corona tools through Kevin's eyes and hearing him talk about it is going to put so much more weight and emphasis on the value to that end user, as opposed to, hey, they're coming on, they're listening to me, and they just think, oh, he's from Corona, of course he's going to say that. So that you can't underestimate the value of what a brand ambassador can bring. And some of the really cool things that we're actually looking into is taking brand ambassadors and using technology through some of our advertising partners. You can do this through Facebook. You can do this through, we have a couple of digital ad partners who can do addressable advertising. And that really means, hey, we've got Kevin, he's based in San Diego. We can send people to a Home Depot store in these particular zip codes that we know carries one particular tool, and see how many people clicked on that ad, how many people went into the stores and actually purchased that. And that is just something that's absolutely fantastic that we just have not been able to do. So in a landscaping industry, find who those influencers are, work with them. And I got to tell you, this is something that I find really interesting. I went looking for people who are landscaping professionals, who are ambassadors. They really aren't out there. They don't really exist. So anybody who's listening to this and thinks, you know, what are they going to do on social media or that kind of stuff? Become a brand ambassador, become one of those people, a professional who's talking about landscaping, getting that audience and becoming an influencer in the industry. It doesn't really exist right now. So, I mean, I think there's lots of great opportunities there too.
Yeah, so I can't agree with you more, Chris, on the especially on the point about what are other people saying about our product, right? This is just the way things have gone, right? I don't want to talk to the salesperson about it. I want to know what the users say. What are the reviews? How many Yelp stars does something have, right? This is really how we're measuring things today. So this really helps. And the thing I'm upset about is my boss isn't going to think my 17,000 followers on Twitter is very big anymore after seeing this guy's numbers. I mean, these are unreal. How does Kevin do it, right? We didn't attract this type of crowd with Landscape Chat either. How's he doing?
You know, that's a great question. I've looked at it, and boy, I'll tell you what, I know he's got a crew that's behind him. I think he's got about 6 people that work for him, but he's actively out there every single day. He's doing stuff. He is so engaged. And that's the part that excites me about Kevin, is that not only does he have this vast amount of followers, they are highly engaged and interacting with him. So that's what really attracted Corona to, working with Kevin, is that it's not about numbers, it's about the engagement. And boy, I'll tell you what, he's got there's one that he did this project. I don't know if you can see this over here on the right hand side. She's an R&B artist. Kalani is a really kind of a funny story. He didn't know who she was, and she contacted him. She said she wanted to put in a garden, and he did. He went and he met her. He put in this garden for her, and boy, I'll tell you what, she had, I think, you think Kevin's got a lot of followers. I think she had about 16 million, or yeah, I think she had about 16 million on Instagram. And so you can see he's sharing a picture here of this finished garden, almost 15,000 likes from her followers. So it's like, there's just, you start to put those numbers into perspective, and you find the right influencer. Just imagine what kind of messaging you can get out there.
Yeah, that's a great story for both reasons. And one thing I appreciate about Kevin is that he is out showing hands-on work in the garden. And you've got a couple guys at Jane, Corey Broad and Connor Cunningham, very active on in agriculture and in farming and with growers. And I know when they film from the growers' locations and show what they're doing, it's really popular. I think anybody really who wants to put some thought and effort into it, it's something anybody can do. So I totally think you're right in saying more people should be trying to do this. And it probably could be a separate webinar topic on its own.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I can tell you that in the past 18 months since we've been doing this, Kevin's not the only influencer that we work with. We really look at who is our audience that we're trying to reach and find an influencer that fits each one of those categories. So, and what I can tell you is that from using that sort of approach, we see how we can see the return on that investment.
Yeah. So Chris, do you see some stores, some grocery store chains or grocery stores that are more active in this than others right now?
I really haven't. I had been to a local grocery store, which is it's a Hispanic market, Cardenas, which is right down the street from us. Have the best avocado, so I always have to go there. But it surprised me that just right after having this panel discussion, I went into Cardenas, and it was like, lo and behold, there were, plants that were in their floral display, and I had never seen them there before. So it was like, they're getting it. These people are getting it. And I don't know how long it's going to take before you start seeing that in every grocery store, but the conversations are happening, and it's going to get out there.
Yeah, boy, yeah, you can feel it. And then what products do you think are going to be popular in this that we're going to see in the next year or two?
Well, I do think it's going to be primarily plants. They'll probably have things like accessory type things. I did a event once with I would consider her an influencer. Her name is Debbie Lilly. She has a line of products that she sells through grocery stores. I think it's actually through Safeway and Bonds. And went down and actually met with her, did a promotion with her, and just really understanding that, these folks have been doing this, and they get that, if you're buying flowers, you need a vase, or you like these cute candles that match the vase, that kind of stuff. So I think plants are obviously going to be something that are going to do well. I think herbs and food related edible type products are going to do well because they are in a grocery store, and I think that just makes sense.
Yeah. And these things are the passion products, right? I always think about, the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. The one growth market I saw a lot was pet food industry, pet products, right? This is what I'm passionate about. And you see it now for a lot of the gardening items, right? People are passionate about gardening. They're not so worried about, do I have enough money to spend on this? Is a spending priority for them. So pretty interesting.
Well, I was going to say, and I think tomatoes, peppers, I mean, those are some of the easiest things to grow and some of the greatest successes that people have. That's probably one of the places that grocery stores are going to start off with, like, hey, grow your own pizza garden, thing. So grow your peppers, grow your tomatoes, grow some onions. They're just kind of no-brainers there.
Yeah. The sad part of the end of summer for me, one of them is the end of the tomato sandwich. I'm not going to be having that very much more from my homegrown tomatoes.
Yep.
So, Chris, what if you can share a little bit with us, because I know this is new, and you guys have a strategy. You don't want to share this with all your competitors, but what's Corona doing about this now?
Well, yeah, to your point, it is new, and really just doing this panel gave us some visibility to some of the numbers, some of the things that are going on, that the fact that this industry is looking to make that sort of investment and bring on that sort of commitment in their stores made us realize, hey, we've already got products that are available. Things like those displays that I had shown in the presentation. Look, those are so easy to just roll out on the floor. They don't take up a lot of space, and getting them outfitted with the right products that are, that candy bar at the checkout stand. Boy, I tell you what, I think that there's some really great opportunities. So we will definitely be looking at that and figuring out ways how we can help them drive incremental sales, because those customers are there. They are interested, and you're going to get a lot more eyeballs in a grocery store than you are in a garden center.
Yeah, so true. And what's so exciting about this is you see the shift change. I was in a Five Guys a few months ago, and they had on there, our potatoes today came from Pocatello, Idaho. And I want to see this shifted someday to they came from Pocatello, Idaho, and they were irrigated with drip irrigation, right? Because people are caring more about this. They want to know about sustainability and what's happening. So I think it's really cool shift change.
Yeah, I mean, I can even add to that with Corona, we had introduced on all of our cutting tools corrugated cardboard packaging, and there's just a small little piece of plastic on there so that you can't cut yourself, but it gives you the ability to check out the tool ahead of time. But I cannot tell you how many times we get emails from customers saying, I purchased this product because you use this sustainable cardboard packaging. It's so much nicer than the big chunky piece of plastic that you get that you can't break into the tool. It really does matter to them, and it's becoming a key selling point.
Yeah, well, that's really cool, Chris. And gosh, I want to say thank you for joining us today. This has been really fascinating. I know it's something I'm going to be thinking about for the rest of the day and into the weeks to come, as I think about how to help this shift move and how to work better with it. Right, this is definitely one that you want to go with the flow and not against. So,
there you go.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I always appreciate it when you come on, and you do such a great job for us. So thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to thank all the viewers who came out today. And I know it's a short week. We're trying to get 5 days worth of work done in 4 days. So I appreciate you coming out, watching. And remember, you can see all our trainings at the janesusa.com website /trainings. You can find all our hundreds of trainings there now that are always free to take a look at. And if you have some comments or questions or things you'd like us to focus on, feel free to email me and send me that information too. So thanks again, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Thank you.
weekend, and we'll see you back here next week. We're going to have Connor Cunningham talking about what we have learned through our first year of water management services to agriculture. And did we actually get the results that we expected? So it should be good. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you.